everyone, my name's Stonesy Boy and welcome back to Reading with Stonesy. Today we're going to read about, I don't know how many pages that is. Let's see, 2 to 7 is 9, 1 to, wait what? Are we reading 29 pages today? Wow, that's a lot. Guess that would be 29 though, huh? Well, we got our food ahead of us, don't we? Anyways, yeah. Guess we're reading 29 pages. This is gonna be long. But it's okay, we're on the decent part of the book, and I think after this chapter it's gonna be kind of more interesting. So, let us begin with Chapter 19, The Unlucky Mine. Hody joins the crew beneath Bayline Hill and the treasure and its guardians. To Stack's relief, Hody said yes to the proposal immediately. Now he had his crew. But the miners loved to gossip, and word soon reached Barnacle about the deal Stack struck with Miss Tanny. After the day shift, Barnacle swaggered to the dormitory where Stax, Osk, and Hody were gathering their equipment. "Uh-oh," Hody said. Barnacle's face was a brilliant red, his beady black eyes intent and searching. He spotted Stax and came to a halt, the corners of his mouth twitching, and then Barnacle began to laugh. "So you really think you can make that cursed hole into a ground payoff?" he wheezed. "I think you're that much smarter than everyone else. Well, you're welcome to waste time at trying you and anything dumb enough to believe in you. That hole all yours, Sir Stax, and I hope I'll see you buried in it." Barnacle departed, cackling. "Well, wasn't that nice?" Stax asked with a smile. "I can't wait to see his face in a week when we're all rich." An hour later, they opened the gate, securing the entrance of the Braidwine Hill mine, and explored the galleries of tunnels that had been bored through with the rock. Stack tisk-tisked repeatedly. The excavation had all signs of Barnacle's handiwork, with tunnels dug haphazardly in all directions. Stax could easily imagine the burly crew boss ordering of digs based on nothing but gut instinct, then handing over the miners impatiently as more rock was stripped away, and blaming them when their pickaxes failed to uncover the great wealth he imagined was below the hill. But Barnacle's haphazard work practices weren't that interested Stax. Once he toured the entire mine, thankfully no monsters seemed to have taken up residence in the darkness. Stack sat down with Osk and Hody in the center of the lowest level. "The biggest problem is this mine is that Mr. Barnacle didn't dig deep enough," Stack explained. "He was unlucky not to hit a far amount of oil, iron and coal, and even some gold. But I'm not surprised he came up empty where gems were concerned." Osk grinned. He hated Barnacle, whoever missed a chance to mock her relief in Redstone, while Hody looked rapt, hanging on to Stack's every word. Stax hoped the young miner's faith with him would prove justified. "Now, my father had a system for finding the most valuable deposits," he explained. "He worked down from sea level to find the right depth of most profitable mining. Unfortunately, I can't determine sea level here, and I don't know how my father made his calculations." "Are you saying you want me to build something that could do that, Stax?" Osk asked. "Because it's quite the puzzle." "That would be amazing, Osk. Definitely think about it. But in the meantime, we have another way to find the right depth. Instead of working down from sea level, you work up from bedrock." "Bedrock?" Hody asked. "Never seen that, Mr. Stonecutter. Isn't that the center the overworld's made out of?" "Maybe. To be honest, the science is always a little over my head," Stack said. "But lucky for us, you don't have to dig as far down to the center of the overworld to hit bedrock. Still, we'll be able to blow lava line. You know what that is, right?" Oz shook her head, but Hody was nodding. "It's the depth where you find the hot lava lakes," he said. "Exactly," Stack said. "And the ideal depth for gem hunting is right above it. So the dangerous part is that we all have to dig the way down to bedrock to find the right measurement, and then back up to where it's safer. So before you put a pickaxe on the rock down there, check it to see if it's hot. If you think you see steam or little blobs of stone on the ceiling or walls, don't keep it in yourself. Same if you think that you hear sloshing or bubbling, and you always have a water bucket nearby. Don't forget that part. If I'm right, we're going to find wealth somewhere down under our feet. Wealth enough, Hody, to build your girl that undersea dream house of yours. But you can't build anything if you're dead, remember that." Oz gave Stax a thumbs up, while Hody grinned and applauded. They all started digging a staircase down, narrow enough that you can wear constantly hearing Stax left to descend and wound up faintly dizzy if you hurried. To Stax's relief, they didn't encounter lava as they dug down and down and down. To his disappointment, they also didn't uncover any valuable ore or gems. There wasn't even a small vein of coal. At the end of the first night's work, Stacks caught himself worrying that the rumors were true, and the Brainwine Hill mine was really cursed somehow, but he simply smiled and told the others to get some sleep. Stacks was tired the next day but vowed to push on. After dinner, he joined Vosk and Hody for another night's work. They'd been digging down for the better part of 2 hours when Hody's pickaxe struck something a sharp, high-pitched sting instead of a dull thunk. Easy now, Stacks said. Let's gear some way and see what we have. Obsidian makes that sound sometimes too. Hody was excited at the prospect of seeing bedrock for the first time, so Stacks and Osk hung back, a block above them as the younger miner cleared away some loose rock. It was revealed it was definitely bedrock, a dull gray and seemed impenetrable. The three of them would hammer away at a single chunk of bedrock until they grew old and stopped, wearing hundreds of iron tools down to nubs in the process, but not so much as to scratch it. So, now we can work our way back up, he asked Hody, sweating and breathing as he also grinned broadly. Please has been the first to reach their goal. Not quite yet, Stacks said. Bedrock isn't an evenly distributed layer. It's more of a lumpy line. We needed to confident we found the lowest point. That will give us a baseline for how far we need to go up. I never knew how much science there was to be aware down here, Osk said. I thought it was just putting pickaxe into rock. Well, almost, Stacks said. My grandmother used to say it was about putting pickaxe into the right rock. The three of them spread out in all directions of the staircase, hollowing out a chamber tall enough to stand up in. Stacks would keep reminding Osk to check for hot spots and make sure the water bucket was close in hand, instead of chattering about how the depth gauge isn't using redstone. And he had to repeatedly assure Hody that there was no point hammering away at bedrock, despite his burning curiosity of what lay below it. As Stacks had predicted, the bedrock was mixed with other varieties of stone. The boundary formed a wavy line and rose and fell. With their 4 hours already gone, Stacks halted the work and the three of them surveyed the room they hacked out in the rock, identifying its lowest point. I don't think we're going to find anything lower than that, Stacks said. Excellent work, people. Tomorrow we work our way up and we start to really dig. With the unglamorous task of figuring out the proper depth finally behind them, Stacks found himself impatient to get through the next day's work in the mine. A wait was made for worse because Barnacle insisted on tormenting them. The man alternated between scoffing at them after hours of project and responding to no, with a hint of worry in his voice. If he found anything, Stacks gave Barnacle a little beyond polite answers, and was careful not to give the crew boss any reason to criticize him. Barnacle found things to yell about anyway, and Stacks was tired and cross by the time his regular shift finally came to an end. His spirits rose when he saw Osk and Hody were clearly eager to continue the project. They made their way down to the tight, winding stair that they carved out of rock until they reached the bedrock chamber. Stacks knelt down at one of the lowest points and found a set of pickaxe on its end, then used it to measure the distance to the ceiling. About 3 blocks, Stacks said. That was what I figured. Now we dig up 9 blocks above the ceiling, and then we can start. At Stacks' instance, they worked slowly to build a new staircase up, always minding to one side instead of directly above their heads. After a few more minutes of work, Stacks called a halt and asked Hody to make a measurement. 12 blocks above bedrock, the young miner reported. A figure Stacks checked for himself and confirmed. Very good, Stacks said. This should be the ideal height for gems then. We got another hour or two. Let's find the feeder tunnel. 2 blocks wide, 64 blocks long. Maybe we even find something tonight. As they quickly did, a vein of iron had snaked its way across the ceiling of the feeder tunnel. They followed it until it petered out a couple blocks above them, then filled in with rock and removed. Stacks was pleased by this quick success, and the rest of the hour passed with nothing found. Still, Osk and Hody seemed optimistic as they packed up their tools, convinced tomorrow Stacks would be proved about the mine. But he wasn't. In carving out the length of the feeder tunnel, they found nothing but a few short runs of coal ore, and the day after the disappointment too, they excavated 6 branch tunnels, and found nothing but some scattered deposits of coal and iron. More than Barnacle had found, perhaps, but not enough to justify the time they'd spent, and certainly nothing that would convince Miss Tawny to hire more miners. As they trudged back to the surface, Hody muttered darkly about the gremlins his grandpa had told him would infest mines, working against the crew and the cackling as they stole away gems and replaced with the ordinary rock. Oscar hung her head. She hoped that they'd at least find redstone. Stacks assured them the next day they would be different, but his words sounded hollow, and he was sure to smile looked forced and fake. They had only 2 nights left to make Stacks' gamble pay off. Stacks stumbled through the day, earning savage rebukes from Barnacle as he admitted he deserved. He was exhausted by the extra work and lack of sleep, and knew Osk and Hody were also suffering. Stacks' father had taught him that ideas such as hope and luck did not belong in the mines. There was only trust in your calculations and procedures were correct, and because of that trust, patience and belief in the odds of finding wealth were in your favor. Still, Stacks couldn't help hoping there were low luck, and easily discovery would lift them up and give them faith to push through the last 2 nights. He didn't dare hope for diamonds, the most valuable thing under the ground, but even a small seam of gold or lapis would be encouragement enough to keep going, or a little run of redstone, that would at least cheer up Osk. But there was nothing except a little more core iron, and for the first time during the project, Hody asked if it was time to go to bed, when they still had more than an hour left. As Osk and Hody shuffled off dejectedly, sore and dirty and tired, Stax could muster the strength to think of words that might rally them. One more night, he told them, things can still change. He felt numb all the next day, barely hearing Barnacle's taunts and promises that he would work Stax like a rented donkey once Miss Tawny declared this project a failure. Everyone but Stax and the two defunded fools had known it would be. Stax have expected Osk and Hody not to show up for the last night of work, but there they were. There they were, but neither of them said a word as they descended beneath Brandywine Hill. They had 3 branch tunnels left to excavate, 2 of the left of the feeder tunnel and 1 to the right. And Stax wondered if they had enough time to finish that work. Tired as they were, but there was nothing to do except get started. The first tunnel yielded a seam of redstone. Then Stax smiled with Osk's glee. At least the little inventor would wind up getting something out of this whole misadventure. Halfway down the second tunnel, Stax noticed that he was sweating more than usual and yelled for Hody to stop. The other man turned in surprise, having managed to stop his pickaxe in mid-swing. Check if that hot's rock, Stax said. It's fine, said Hody, patting the wall. See? Wait, you're right, it's hot. Shh, added Osk, holding up her hand. I hear something. Stax heard it too, a bubbling, chuckling noise from behind the rock wall. Lava, he said. So we stop? Asked Hody. We can take a look, Stax said, but we do it carefully. Dig out the ceiling and raise up the floor to ensure we're above it, and we'll dig from there. Osk and Hody did as directed, and we're all sweating freely now in the hot tunnel. All right, Hody, Stax said. Osk, if we have a better water bucket ready to pour on lava that flows in. Hody swung his pickaxe against the rock wall, grunting with effort. On the third blow, the wall exploded inward. Fiery light filled the tunnel, forcing the 3 of them to blink against the sudden brightness. Stax peered over Hody's shoulder at the lake of bubbling lava beyond the wall. Lava, and something bright beyond it. An arrow zipped above his ear, practically parting his hair, and rattled as it bounced off the walls of the tunnel. Skeletons, Hody cried out. Close it up before they come. No, Stax yelled, surprising himself. He pushed past Osk and Hody, scrambling through the gap and standing panting on the stony lip of the pool of lava. The 2 skeletons stood in front of him. Arrows knocked their skulls swiveling madly in their backbones. Osk and Hody were yelling, but Stax barely heard them. He swung his pickaxe at the first skeleton, knocking the monster backward into the lava, its bow bursting into flame before it vanished beneath the surface of the molten rock. A stray goblet of lava struck Stax in the arm. He heard himself cry out. The second skeleton fired, and Stax grunted in pain. He swung wildly at the skeleton, missing, then connected with the backswing. The skeleton opened its bony jaws, and then a sound came out. And Stax sprouted the pickaxe down again and kept swinging it. Someone was yelling his name. It was Osk. He realized. Stax, stop. They're gone. You're all right. Stax dropped the pickaxe and bowed his hand to his knees, panting. Check the rest of the cavern, he managed to say. Make sure there are others. I did, Stax, said Osk. It's just us, but Stax, come see. Stax came where the woman was pointing at the glittering points of the floor and the walls, the glint of gold, the crimson gleam of redstone, the blue stars of lapis, and up near the ceiling, the cool residence, almost icy. Are those what I think they are? Asked Hody, sounding awestruck. They sure are, Stax said. He began to laugh. Diamonds. Chapter 20. The Accident. Barnacle's mania, digging in the wrong place, light in the darkness. The lava cavern beneath Brandywine Hill was a nexus of gemstone seams, with the wealth that came out of the mine over the next several days had been the old-timers whistling in delighted surprise. It also made Stax a hero. He was asked to tell the story of the fight of the cavern innumerable times, and often had to deny exaggerated versions of it, had already making the rounds among the miners of the people of the Tumbles Harbor. Within a few years, he was certain the tale would be grown into so large that the telling the miners who would swear they were there when they would speak in hushed tones about how Stax Stonecutter fought off a dozen skeletons at once, all of them firing flaming arrows and wearing diamond armor. Miss Tawny was pleased, of course, going so far as to give Stax a grandmotherly smooch on the cheek in front of the assembled miners before announcing that Tumble's extraction company would be hiring men and women to do further excavations. Even Barnacle congratulated Stax, as if he would have, given the size of the cut coming his way despite doing nothing but laugh at the whole project. As for Stax, he received a sack of emeralds along with a kiss on the cheek. He was pretty sure he wasn't enough wealth to hire the champion, but it was a start. And once he became a crew boss, he could expect a steady stream of such payments, provided the Tumble's mines kept paying off. Stax still found himself sitting up at night with the miners' dormitory, staring down at the compass and brooding about Fig Tempro, and all he'd suffer because of him. Sometimes he imagined taking a sack of emeralds to the general store, outfitting himself in armor and buying a sharp sword. Then he strode out of Tumbles Harbor, faced grim, and searched for Fwig until he had his chance for revenge, or die trying. There's no guarantee that he'd ever find Fwig, and finding a fortune in gems wouldn't take Stax a warrior. The wise thing, Stax told himself, was patient. The job was bringing the wealth he could arrange Fueg's downfall and give him the chance to get home. But that was a lot easier to think than Stax actually believed, and so night after night Stax would find a compass in his hand again, as if it were mocking him. And Stax had another problem, until Miss Tawny could find both miners and handle the new operations beneath Brandywine Hill. Stax was stuck working at the Barnacle. At first, Stax thought it wouldn't be so bad. Barnacle stopped addressing Stax as Sir Stax and treated him with more respect. And he had. But Stax's success beneath Brandywine Hill seemed to increase Barnacle's hunger for money instead of easing it, and now he was determined to prove that he could do what Stax had done. With the calendar having turned to a new month, Barnacle's crews were now working deep in the mines, hunting for gems, with Cope's crews working higher and searching for ore. After working, Barnacle pushed miners through the growing shift that he ordered them to dig seemingly at random. Stax decided to take the man aside to reiterate the system his father had taught him years ago for maximizing the chance of finding wealth. Barnacle listened, eyes narrowed, as Stax explained why he made sure to handle the pickaxe was exactly a block long, and how he used to measure distance and ensure they're digging right above the lava line. Which was when Barnacle turned his back on him. "Stop lying, Stax," he said. "Spare me that phony story about heroics in the lava cave. You found those veins right at bedrock, and we both know it. Now, so that's where we're going to be digging. That lava cave was real, Mr. Barnacle. In a week or so, I'll take you there myself. If we dug into it from below, skeletons would have been the least of our problems. We could have all died. Mr. Barnacle, you can't do this." Barnacle reached down and grabbed Stax at the front of his shirt and pulled him close, his voice low and deadly. "Don't tell me how to mine. I've been down here earning that living since before you were born. You check the walls for heat, you watch the strange formation in the right spots. But when your crew boss gives you an order, you follow it." The next day, Barnacle supervised the excavation of the staircase all the way down to bedrock, and then, once they reached it, he ordered them to dig a feeder tunnel 2 blocks wide. Miss Tawny had given Osk permission to take the day off and brainstorm creating a depth gauge, despite Stax's doubts and such a thing could be built. So Tanner would be replaced with a little artificer on Stax's crew, which made Stax nervous. Tanner was even more forgetful than Osk, capable of forgetting a water bucket, torches, or even a pickaxe on occasion. At least he asked Haughty, who took Stax aside when they had a spare moment, looking to make sure Barnacle was watching. "Why are we digging down here?" he asked. "You told us we had to dig up first." "Those are new crew boss's orders," Stax said reluctantly, not wanting Haughty to risk the confrontation with volatile Barnacle. But Tanner was so restrained. "We're digging down here because our crew boss is a fool," he said. "Just remember the safety checks for lava," Stax said. "For instance, Tanner, where's your water bucket?" "I left it back at the junction. Give me a minute." "You can't forget it," Stax said. "Ever." The mining proceeded slowly, and the crews repeatedly hitting bedrock, having to find paths around it. Stax hoped they would find anything of value, and had lack of rewards would convince Barnacle that Stax would have been telling the truth. But barely an hour into the shift, Joroksu hit a seam of gold, and another hour Fix's crew located a small snaking run of lapis. During lunch break, Barnacle passed the length of the feeder tunnel, slapping the men and women on the back and laughing as he predicted the wealth that would soon be flowing in. You thought Brandywine Hill was a good payday. Well, just wait," he exclaimed. They ordered them back in work 20 minutes early, despite Billup's protests of his violation of work rules. So the other miners ignored Billup's, which was no surprise. The rules-obsessed miner rarely went a day without finding a violation he could talk about at length. And of course, they were afraid of Barnacle and his temper. And there wasn't so much grumbling, and Stax knew why. They all wanted to find more wealth, and take home the bonuses that would come with it. It was dangerous in a mine. Haste would be deadly. But Barnacle didn't get up to the surface to ask Miss Leah for additional equipment. Stax checked in quickly with the mining teams, urging them to check for heat and hardened blobs of magma. Barnacle would like that if he found out, but it would have been better to have the alternative. The crew boss came back about a half an hour, barking at miners to hurry up. He found Stax, Tanner, and Hody working sideways around a knot of bedrock, their pickaxes rising and falling, striking sparks of the gray stone. "Why are you half a tunnel behind the other crew?" Barnacle demanded. "Slow carts, the 3 of you. These wealthy slick spickle have been a bit of luck in a mine started by someone else, and you 3 think you can swing pickaxes while sitting in comfy chairs on a porch? Well, not on my shift. Hurry it up." He stormed off to yell at someone else, and Stax shook his head, exasperated. "He has some nerd calling us slow carts," muttered Tanner. "I'll show him. Hey, Hody, I bet we can finish this branch tunnel in half an hour. Are we on?" "None of that," Stax said. "We mine what we mine, and we find what we find. My father taught me that one, too." But Tanner and Hody were determined, and swung their pickaxes as hard as they could, making rocks fly as they dug at the tunnel. As Stax turned to follow behind them, clearing the way of the loose rock, he was intentionally hurrying up and down the tunnel, taking away the rock removal to the surface, and returning what he could find more waiting for him. He was walking back and heard a sound of oddly hollow thunk, followed by a hiss. The tunnel had made a jogged right and avoid a knot of bedrock. so Stacks couldn't see straight ahead where Tanner and Hody were working, but he saw a bright light beyond the turn, brighter than the soft glow of a torchlight. He heard Hody cry out, "It's lava! Tanner, get the bucket! Get the bucket!" Hody screamed. Stacks broke into a run and tripped over something. It was the water bucket. He left yet again by Tanner. Stacks grabbed it and ran over to the corner, but one look told him the worst had happened, and he arrived too late. Chapter 21. Stacks starts again. Little house in the savannah. Stacks' new routine. Hajira's code. "You're sure you don't change your mind?" Miss Tiny asked for the fourth or maybe even the fifth time. "I'm sure," Stacks said. He was sitting in Miss Tiny's office with his gear packed. "Stacks, it wasn't your fault," Miss Tiny said. "I have eyes and ears down there, you know. I know that right before it happened. You yearned for all the crews about safety. I know how many times Tanner forgot about the water bucket. I know it was Barnacle who insisted on digging too low, despite your warnings. I don't know what else do you think would have done. I don't know either, but whatever it was, I didn't do it. And now Hody's dead." "Yes, he is, but going off on your own won't bring him back. It was an accident, Stacks, and accidents happen to solo miners as well as full crews. In fact, they happen even more often than solo miners, because when you get tired, there's no one except you to remind you of the do's and don'ts. If I make that mistake, I'll only be one pay the price," Stacks said, "and that's the way I want it." Miss Tandy looked at him in a long moment, her eyes searching his face, and when she nodded, "So your plan is to go into the outback and set up your own homestead?" She said. "It's dangerous out there, Stacks. There's no law, no neighbors, no one to help you if you need it." "I know that," said Stacks, patting his sword on the side and pulling to the hilt and the micro black out of his scabbard. "Actual iron, no more wood." "Well, that's a start," Miss Tiny said. "You've been to see Brubs and Zanzini already, I suppose?" Stacks nodded. "The rest of my equipment waiting there for me, along with the title of the land I've chosen." The iron sword, equipment, and land title was used up more than 2/3 of Stacks' earnings of the Tumbles Extraction Company, leaving him with a low margin of error if something went wrong. But Stacks didn't want to talk about that, how little he had left. If he had, Miss Tiny might have tried to talk him out of doing the last thing he felt like he needed to do. He reached into the sack and carried out his belt, extracted 3 emeralds, which he placed in a line on Miss Tiny's desk. "Would you see that these would go to Hody's sweetheart?" he asked. It would be enough for that undersea pal she always talked about, but it would help her get something a little smaller." Miss Tiny nodded and tucked the emeralds into her desk drawer. "We'll take care of her. We'll do that on our own. Everyone on the shift is giving some of their wages. Barnacle even tried to hand over half his bonus to the Braidwine Hill." Stacks didn't expect that, and found his emotion threatening to get the better of him. "I figured I couldn't talk you out of leaving, so I went to the general store myself," Miss Tiny said. "I have something for you." He ducked into the back room and returned a minute later with a large T-shaped package, which she indicated Stacks should open. She stripped this paper away and discovered a brand new pickaxe, one of those head with a cold greenish-blue diamonds. "That iron one of yours is looking a little worn, and that won't do out there by your lonesome," Miss Tiny said. "If you measure the handle, you'll find it's exactly a block long." Stacks stammered his thanks and stuck out his hand for her to shake. "Oh, come on, you ridiculous boy," Miss Tiny said, embracing him and kissing him on the cheek. "I hate to lose you, but I've known enough ridiculous boys over the years to see your mind is made up. Good luck, Stacks. Good luck and keep safe." The little patch of land Stacks had bought was several hours' walk from Tumbles Harbor beyond the hills that gave the town its name, away from the coast. The land turned the savannah, the vast, flat expanse of the grass that stretched into a line of mountains to the north and away into the infinity of the east. The grass was broken by stone-lipped ravines, as if someone had struck the ground with a giant axe, and by tall, brooding acacia trees whose sharply angled limbs made Stacks think they were about to fall over. Stacks' land was in the middle of the savannah, atop the little hill. Using the shovel he bought at the general store, he built a simple cabin in sod, like the one he built near the shores of Desolation Bay, big enough for a bed, several chests and a crafting table, and a furnace, and lit by a single smoky torch. The cabin had a door of acacia wood and the tree chopped down, and sat in the center of the square of fencing made of the same wood. In the corner of his plot of land, Stacks had dug out a little pond and planted a few rows of wheat and a few pumpkins, which was enough food to sustain him about the necessity of caring for animals. If you're thinking this all sounds a little depressing, well, Stacks thought so too. But his last night in Hody haunted him, and he vowed he'd never let that happen again. This plan made much the same as it's been in the Tumbles Harbor. He collected enough wealth to see the champion and get out alone and try to enlist the fine Fuego Tempero. So Stacks dug down in his yard, his shovel making quick work through the dirt, until he hit a rock and put his shovel aside in favor of his new diamond pickaxe. The tool was a lightweight and felt good in his hands. It the rock in satisfying speed. As he'd done working with Osk and Hody, Stax tunneled straight down, capping his new mine with the trapdoor of acacia wood. Several days' work brought him down to bedrock, but this time, hard work of digging down wasn't fruitless. He accumulated enough coal to fuel his furnace and make weeks' worth of torches, and hid several veins of iron. Once he dug back above the lava line, Stax carved out a head house below ground, connecting the stairwell leading back to the surface, to the feeder tunnel. He started excavating. The head house became another base of operations, with chests full of equipment and food and a bed so. Stax could rest between shifts, and increasingly that was where he spent most of his time, digging out tunnels until he was too tired to work any longer, and been sleeping in a house with his diamond pickaxe next to his bed. Stax quickly developed a routine. Every week, he harvested food from his garden to sustain while he mined. Every other week, he made a long trip to Tumbles Harbor to get new supplies, allowing himself some honey for his bread as small as luxury, and to check if Brubs had heard from anyone who might find a way across the Sea of Sorrows. The answer was always no. The rest of the time, he mined. Stax had one visitor while he was setting up a new operation, Osk, who brought him a fare of gifts. The first was a pressure plate by Stax's front gate, which activated a redstone torch down in the head house, telling Stax he had guests. The second was a golden clock, which indicated whether it was day or night, in the overworld far above Stax's head. He was grateful, but since he never had any other visitor, the redstone torch down the head house stayed dark, except for the afternoon when it turned out that the wild pig had stepped on it while looking for a way to get through the fence to eat Stax's crops. The clock was useful, but after a while, Stax no longer cared what time it was. All Stax did was mine and sleep and mine some more, and his clothes became dirty and worn, his hair grew long and his scraggly beard sprouted out of his chin. Though he didn't realize he once again looked like a pathetic, ragged figure Moe's caravan had encountered near the road at Tumbles Harbor. But he also started talking to himself again, with conversation about the quality of ore and the most efficient use of a pickaxe. He'd fallen into the routine wasn't particularly good for his health. With his world shrinking to mine, his little vegetable patch in the general store, even his memories of his beloved cats and the beautiful house on the hill had once made gleaming diorite and granite and glass started to become a bit blurry and distant. Until something changed. It was a day to the garden, or at least Stax thought it was. He lost track of the day and night, and noticed that it was down to a few crusts of bread. When you're getting hard, a single piece of pumpkin pie that smelled a little odd, so he trudged up the winding stone steps to emerge in his yard, blinking at what felt like too much light, even though the position of the sun indicated it was late afternoon. Stax was hacking away the stem of ripe pumpkin when he felt the back of his neck prickle and stood up, peering across the savannah. At first he thought his mind was playing tricks on him, when he spotted a lone figure in the distance, striding across the plains in the direction of Tumbles Harbor. Stax thought the traveler might be Osk, but the figure was far too tall to be an eccentric artificer, and the way they walked suggested both power and purpose. Stax realized he had left his iron sword in the cabin and ducked inside to get it, as he wished he had a bow. But what had been to use? He only had 2 arrows, and it was a poor shot anyway. All he could do was wait. The traveler was dressed entirely in black, with nut-brown skin and black hair streaked with gray, pulled back and tied in a ponytail. His face was weather-beaten, seamed and pocked. A sword hung on his belt, and a bow was slung over his shoulder. To Stax's surprise, the man was barefoot, but it never broke stride, marching across the savannah like he'd been drawn by string, without care for thorns or rocks that might be lurking in his path. The man came to a halt in Stax's gate and stood there, regarding him. "Good morning, Stax Stonecutter," he said in a voice that surprised Stax, for it was rich and melodic, beautiful even, and he had quite a poetic for a singer, not a rough-looking wanderer. "And who are you?" Stax said curtly. In no way reassured the traveler's polite greeting. Flake temper had been polite, at least occasionally, and he turned to Stax's life upside down. Plus, Stax had once again fallen out of practice of talking to other people. "My name is Hiera Tenboots," the man said, "and we have a friend in common." That name was familiar somehow. Had Flake told him while Stax was a prisoner? Stax's hand crept toward the hilt of his sword, though he doubted he would have a chance against anyone who marched across the savannah barefoot without so much as batting an eye. The man saw Stax bending his sword and raised his eyebrows. "I believe you know my good friend and occasional traveling companion, Romoa Peranzi," he said. "She asked me to check on you. The gentleman at the Tumbles Harbor General Store told me where I could find you." Stax felt his shoulders sag in relief. "Oh, I thought you were... Well, never mind what I thought. Please come in. It will be dark soon." Suddenly, he was embarrassed by his little house made out of dirt, and also by himself, seeing how he was pretty much made of dirt, too, by now. But Hajir shook his head, smiling apologetically. "Unfortunately, that's against my code," he said. "Your code?" Stax said, wondering what exactly Hajir was eyeing what he couldn't do. "I have vowed never to make use of shelter, whether for myself or for another," he said. "I have no home and no supply beyond what you see, and and I never stay in one same place for 2 nights in a row. Stacks looked at him in disbelief. No shelter? How do you survive at night? Trees are very useful, Hajira said. Typically, I sleep in their branches. If the tree is not available, I remain awake, relying on my sword and bow for protection. Once I was awake for 6 straight days while crossing the desert of the last side, and that was a difficult experience. Stacks imagined spending a night in a tree, surrounded by prowling zombies and skeletons. He knew there were many of them in the savannah. He often found chunks of rotten meat and lengths of bone in the tall grass outside his fence. Don't things try him up after you? Stacks said. Spiders do, Hajir said, and I've been bitten many times, and though they only do what is in their nature, I must admit, I am not fond of them. In my experience, neither skeletons nor zombies climb. Occasionally a skeleton will fire arrows at me, but unfortunately, they are poor shots. I see, Stacks said, though the whole idea felt fantastical to him. If I can ask, how do you develop this code of yours? I had a moment's crisis as a young man. I realized I was growing softball surrounded by comforts, and that's why I knew nothing of the world, so I decided to discover if I had a true self worth preserving. It seems like you have more proven that you do, Stack said. Hajir smiled. I like to think so, yes. But I find the idea of going back to the life unimaginable now. This is who I am, and this is how I live, and I can help others discover the path to their true self. I do so. If it will not bother you, I will sleep tonight in that acacia tree. Stack managed not to laugh at the idea of someone sleeping in one of the great thorny trees that would somehow bother him. But now, please tell me of yourself, so I may tell Romoa how fares your quest in the mind of a mysterious fake Tempero, and take your well-deserved revenge. Romoa told you that? Asked Stax, not sure that he liked the idea. Of course she did, said Ajir, looking surprised. How would I find your adversary if she had not? I have traveled many lands since adopting my code, Stack Stonecutter, though I am afraid I know about the wet area west of the Sea of Sorrows is just rumors. Everywhere I go, people bring me news and stories they believe to be true, and not only stories. I've asked about this Frig Temporal since Romoa told me your story, and I continue to do so, but not so far, I'm afraid. No one has heard of this man. I'm grateful for you helping, Stack said, and to Romoa. Where is she? I am to meet with her outside the lost fane of the Green Faith in the rain jungles of Jagatel, 2 weeks from tonight. It is a long journey. I may have to sleep less than is the ideal, and I do not know which route Romoa will take. She dislikes taking the same road twice, and never rides horses, for reasons I have never understood. But because of those things, she is often late. Stax had to smile at that, remembering Romoa's relentless and her distaste for the idea of spending even a single night at Caravasani. You may accompany me if you like, Ajir said. Perhaps such a journey would help you discover your own path, though fellow travelers often find my code hard to abide by. No thank you, Stax said. I'm afraid my duties are thunk. Stax jumped as an arrow slid into the fence between him and Ajira. Excuse me, Stax, said the black-clad man, shrugging his bow off his shoulder with his left hand, while his right reached up, unerringly, and eased the long bow, fletched in a brilliant red feathers in a quiver. He turned a bowstring twang and heard the rattling of bones coming apart somewhere out in the gloomy savannah. Perhaps you should take shelter, Stax, Ajira said. The nights in the overworld are beautiful, and they are a domain of things with teeth. Until morning, my friend. He clasped Stack's shoulder, his grip firm, and turned to walk into the dusk, offering a cheerful wave. Something growled in the gathering dark, and Stax retreated to his acacia wood door. He tried to spy Jira, but failed, and shut the door behind him. Stax had been working so hard that he grown used to falling asleep at the moment he hit his head on the pillow. But that night, his sleep was broken and restless. He dreamed that Frig Temporal was knocking on the door in a little sod cabin, telling Stax their business wasn't concluded, and Stax opened it, saw Flake standing in the head of an army of skeletons, all of them clad in strange spiked armor made of acacia. He woke up and started in the moonlight streaming through the window. Just a dream, he said. I'm awake. It was just a dream. But he could hear someone outside, yelling and chanting. Stax opened the door a crack and peered out. The brilliant moon made acacia zigzag, shadows even longer and stranger. Stax thought he spied odd shapes out there, lone figure in frantic motion in the center of the large circle. Madness, stuttered Stax, now not sure if he was dreaming or not. Stax hadn't been dreaming. In the morning he emerged, blinking and scrubbing his head through his hair, to find Hajir leaning against the fence, gnawing on a chunk of meat. Objects littered the ground around him, stands of spider silk, bones, arrows, and even heaps of gray powder. Good morning, Stax, said Hajir. I hope I don't disturb you. It was a busy night. Please take anything here that you might use. Stax accepted the bones, which he could grind into meal to fertilize his garden, and left the rest. We were interrupted last night, and I was talking when I have listened, Hajir said. You said you had duties that prevented you traveling to me to Jagatel? Unfortunately, I do, Stax said. My mining and my mission. Your mission to find Void Temporal? Yes. Are these not mutually exclusive? Excuse me? If you're mining, you're not searching for Void Temporal, and if you're searching for Void Temporal, you are not mining. Stacks thought Hajiro was making fun of him, and was about to tell Strange Cyber it's none of his business, but then he realized Hajiro wasn't smiling, but seemingly genuinely puzzled. It's not simple, Stacks said. I'm not a warrior, though you certainly are. Say, Mr. Ten Boots. Hajiro held up his hand. This is your quest, Stacks, not mine. I will help you discover your path if you want my assistance, but I will not steal your destiny from you, whatever it may be. If it means riding the overworld of Frigg Temporal, by all means steal it, Stack said. I wouldn't mind in the slightest. The idea seemed to offend Hajiro, whose gaze grew stony. That is against my code. Of course it is, Stacks with a sigh. That's alright. I had someone else in mind anyway. He told Hajiro of the champion and how he performed services to return to people making overworld a better place. And now Stacks had no idea what the price might be. I have heard stories of this man, Hajiro said, though there have been no new stories in recent years. So this is where you mine, instead of pursuing your tormentor? You hope to meet this price of this champion? Stacks nodded. And I'm not there yet. Suddenly there's another Hajiro stern gaze. His plan seemed less certain than he would have liked. How will you know when you've reached your goal? Hajiro asked. That was a good question. I don't know, Stacks said. I just know I don't have enough. Not yet, anyway. The sun had fully risen, drying and drew the grasslands. Hajiro was peering into the distant gray shapes of the mountains and shifting from foot to foot. I must go, Stacks, he said, or I'll be late to meet Ramoa, if she is not late herself, of course. Stacks had to smile at the man's obvious longing for the horizon and whatever lay beyond it. And for the moment he wanted to tell Hajiro to wait, and he would pack his things and come with him. Stacks had survived the bleak shore, nothing but a shipwreck and broken tower nearby. Surely he'd be able to learn from a tree, but no. He had chests to fill with ore and gems, treasure that he would not allow to hire a champion. And then, once the overworld was rid of Frigg Temporal, he would search for a way home, put his life back together, and his plan not gallivant off to some jungle with a barefoot fanatic. Good luck journeying in the jungle of that place, Stack said. I hope the treetops are comfortable. As do I, Hajiro said. I have heard of Jagged's Hell as a massive trees and such which people make their homes. I am eager to see this myself, though I am undecided on the question of whether a tree could people consider a home counts as shelter. I suppose you'll have time to think it over, Stack said. Yes, a long walk always helps. Good luck to you, Stack Stonecutter. May you discover the path of your true self, and find the destiny you deserve. And if Ramoa should pass this way, remind her of our appointment. Hajiro clasped Stack's shoulder again, then strode off, and his long steps taking him across the savannah almost as quickly as Stacks could have run. Stacks had work to do. He mapped out his new feeder tunnel and hoped of finding lapis deposits. But instead, he stood at a fence, one hand on a rail, until Hajiro had dwindled in a small figure and lost his sight. Wow. That was long, but that was also very informative. But yeah, that was a really good read today. Tomorrow, we're reading 188 to 207, I think. 200, 201, oops, I skipped it. 205. Kind of a long read as well, but that's okay. 205. We're finally in the 200 mark, which means we are on the final-esque stretch of this book, because there's 288, which means we'll be done in we have tomorrow, and then we have 88 pages after that, which is 4. We have 5 more episodes left. So yeah, hope you guys have a super fantastic, wonderful day. People like, be efficient, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time.